All right, a friend of mine gave this to me. This kind of follows suit with the mower I just quit working on. It's a coast to coast chain store Rototiller, and I don't know exactly what the issue is with it, other than, I mean, the number one thing, I guess, is that the clutch down here is stuck. So when you try to spin this thing over, it wants to spin the tines too, which makes it nearly impossible to start. So we gotta try that. And then I'm sure that this thing's all boogered up and probably needs to be cleaned out. No idea if it's got gas in it or not. It's got some. Wow, tank's way better than the one I just worked on. But I'm gonna work on trying to get this motor pulled off. Should only be a couple screws, bolts I mean. And then I'm thinking if I just pry up on that engine, it will. Then I'm guessing this is gonna be a situation, but much less of a situation than that mower was. It had rust growing off the bottom like a ½ inch tall. This isn't bad. I bet I can just clean that out. I'll do the same thing I do on all of them. I'll probably pull the head off, clean all the carbon out. There's a clutch, starter clutch in here that I will lube up as I have that hood off, and we'll see what we can do. But first things first, I pulled one bolt, but first things first, I gotta get this motor off and see if I can get that clutch to separate. And then I'll show you what we got. Bolts out, and I pried on it with a crowbar, and I was able to get it free. So, to show you what was stuck is this. This has kind of like, well, it's clutch material on the outside of this, and this moves up and down, or should move up and down. And it sits right inside of this, and they meet. And when this cone goes up here, then it catches all the speed, makes kind of a nice transition, and then spins these gears. So we got that unstuck. I bet that's honestly the biggest problem. So now we'll focus on this and see if we can't get it to. All right, so I cleaned all that out. I mean, there's still some remnants. I'll do a better job, but now when you pull on this thing, this moves in and out, which should be hopefully most of the problem. I have no idea if this is any good down here. It does move when I pull the engine over, but that doesn't mean it's any good once you get pressure on it. So we'll see, but next up, we'll work on the engine. All right, don't mind the mess, but we're gonna get started. So I don't really know. I probably should just put this whole thing back together and just see if I can get it to pop, but that's not really my style. I like to just kind of know where everything's at. So I guess for starters, I know that this carburetor is probably gonna need something. Maybe it won't, but rather than fussing with it forever and trying to make it go and then eventually taking it apart anyways, I'll just do it now. And a lot of times these recoils need to be oiled. So I'll show you that in a minute. And I mean, this thing is very old, and a lot of times these fill up with carbon. So I run the risk of messing this up and ruining the head gasket when I do it. But, you know, I'd rather just know that everything's in good shape. Plus you can inspect the valves and the piston to make sure it's in good shape. And, you know, I'm gonna clean this tank out so that it doesn't have a bunch of boogers in it. And then when we get done, we'll oil it up, and I doubt I paint it, but maybe I will. I don't know. We'll see how we feel once we get done and make sure everything else works. So here we go. so this is kind of why. Now, if I would have gotten this to start, you know, it probably would have been okay, but and all this stuff would have started blowing out, but like you wouldn't have seen that necessarily. The other thing that's kind of cool, I don't know if they started doing this in 78 or if someone lost spark in this once upon a time and they put an electronic ignition in here. But I already checked to see if we have spark, and we do. I can show you that when I kind of get everything put back together, but I won't mess with that at all. I'll just clean this up. And but yeah, that's pretty gross. So a mouse made its nest. A lot of times they chew on these wires, and it looks like the coil wire actually is fine. This one anyways. And then the kill wire comes right through here, out through here, and then would ground it out if you want to shut it off. And it looks like that's fine too. So I think we're in good shape. I'm gonna go blow this off quick and we'll keep going. Kind of gross, not terrible. Now this has got some oil coming out, which sometimes can be a bad sign, but I've been flipping this thing over and rolling it around and doing all kinds of crazy stuff with it. So, I mean, I'm not really too concerned about that. I mean, really, the piston looks pretty clean. It'd be kind of hard to... So, I mean, really, that's in pretty good shape. Unless someone's been in here. I mean, this is... I mean, I'm going to clean that off, but this is in great shape. So I'll reuse that. And I'm going to clean this off. But overall... Oop. Next thing you always want to look for is the bore to see how this feels. You run your finger around the inside of it, and it feels perfect. It's smooth. You can see a little bit of wear, but I mean, really got to consider yourself pretty lucky if that's all you see, because you can't even feel those. Those are real smooth. So we'll keep going. All right, I'll probably get a new spark plug for it. But as you can see, there was some pretty heavy carbon, like this was sitting right on the edge of that spark plug. There's no way that would have started like that. Which you could have pulled the spark plug and easily found that out, but now we can try starting it when it looks like this versus like what it did look like. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that this is flat. Basically, the main thing you gotta do is have a flat surface. I have a sanding disc that is completely flat, so you basically pick a side and you just kind of rub it on there until you see scratches all along the outer edge, and then you know it's nice and flat and the head's not warped. So I'm gonna do that quick, and then we'll put this part back together and torque it down. All right, that looks a lot better. I think that's gonna make a pretty good seal. I got it all scratched down until now it's all flat and it won't leak any compression. Now we gotta make at least the inside of this look like that. Hopefully we don't find anything crazy in there. We'll see. All right, so I got that all done. Now it is time to put it back together. I made myself a sheet a long time ago that you look up these engines by their codes or their model numbers. So on this one, 92302. So you come down here and you find the model series. So it's a 9000 series. This tells you all the stuff that you need to know about clearances, cylinder head, inch pounds, 140. So I'll get my click wrench out and torque this sucker down. Yippee. All right, got to get this puppy off, get her cleaned up. Should be fine. All right, so I figured I'd slow down just to show you kind of what I'm doing. So this is essentially the bowl for this. So there's one of these filters goes down in here, and then it constantly is pumping up through the carburetor and filling this up. This is kind of like its reserve. And these little passages right here are regulated by these little flaps, and the vacuum that this creates pulls the air through here, injects it in there, and then when as it pulses, it bounces that spring, this thing, on this and here, and it acts as a fuel pump. So when you're cleaning these things out, you got to be super careful. This is the pickup tube from the tank. This is the pickup tube to go into the engine. You've got to be super careful. These are a pain in the butt to replace. The main things that you need to make sure that are cleaned out on this are obviously both of these two tubes need to have stuff. I'm going to do a better job finishing this out, but I just wanted to show it. Got to have these two tubes cleaned out. Any passage like this has to get cleaned out. That one obviously needs to get cleaned out real good. And in here, I don't know if I can get it. Yeah, there's two holes, one on the right, one on the left. One on the left is bigger, the one on the right is smaller. The one on the right can be pretty hard to get cleaned out, but you can see it once you do. It will poke through a little the side in here, and you'll see your thing. I use torch tip cleaners from like a welder to do that, but I mean, if you get those cleaned out and this is good enough, which I think this one actually is, I might have a spare, but I'm gonna see if that will work. I'm not going to clean the outside much better because this is an old sweaty rototiller, and I still have yet to power wash it and all that, and then what we do from there is kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but I'll stop on the outside, finish cleaning this up, and then put that back together, put that back on there, and like, we'll see if it'll go. Hopefully it will. All right. And that is kind of a, at least final result for right now. Like I said, I'll power wash and clean this thing, but it's, you know, it's just an old tiller. That turned out awesome. The inside is like brand new. So for as much as it looks like this thing sat outside for a long time, really that part cleaned up really good. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it back together, and we're getting real close. What?
By the way, I can blow bubbles with spits in when I got spit.
You can? That's crazy.
You wanna see?
Well, sure.
Watch.
Oh, wow, you can. All right, got to put back together. Had a hard time with the spring on this thing. Wanted to go how I found it was the other way around, but that doesn't make sense, and so I flipped it. Now it works pretty good, so excuse my air compressor. But it's all put back together, so I think it's time to find out if it's gonna go. All right, we are out here. I am getting ready to try to start it up. Guess I don't know if I've gotten a whole picture of it, but that's what she looks like. Kind of an old bruiser, but cool. I've got all the paint to do it, so I might paint it. I'll put the factory air filter back in it once I get the right filter too. They just look so much cooler when they have a fresh coat of paint. Plus, it'll help it last a little bit longer, but I gotta make sure that this gearbox works fine. But I gotta get some gas in it, and I'll probably use some starting fluid just to kind of get it to rip the first time, because it's not gonna have that carburetor bowl pumped all the way up yet, and this will just kind of help speed things up so I don't have to pull it 100 times. So, but yeah, overall the tank was good. I mean, it was dirty, the carburetor was kind of dirty, but I don't know, we might have been able to get away with it. We found a rat's nest in it, so it was good to get that out. It has an electronic ignition, which is good. That means that this thing's got a better shot of living a longer life. And then on top of that, we got this clutch freed up, which is super awesome. So now that works like it should, and I can pull this thing over and it should go. Now this, I would think at some point probably had maybe a throttle linkage on it, and if not, you could always make one. You mount it up on the handlebars and run it right through here and hook it up to this, but this seems pretty easy. The main thing that you want is probably just to put it in the middle so that it's not on kill. It's not grounding it out. Hard to say. I'm guessing all the way over like this is wide open. I guess I'll just have to look at it here in a second, but we'll take this off just to try to get it started. Yeah, that's wide open. This is somewhere here in the middle, and it's not killing the circuit, so that should be good. I'll just give it a little juice and see what it wants to do. Maybe a little more. Oop. Should have replaced that spark plug. All right, I'll go get that. I'll be back. Changed out the spark plug. It's actually, the spark plug's fine, but it's not the right one. So I put the right one in it, and it's new, so now we'll give it a shot.